Hey there, super friends. It's Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Monday, January 13th, 2020. How y'all doing? Sorry I never got a second episode up last week. I did record one and then must have just straight up forgot to upload it. And by now I don't even remember what I was talking about or anything, so, you know. But hopefully we'll do a little bit better this week. I think my aim for next little while is going to be 3 episodes a week. And then once we get solid with that, we'll be aiming to hit the 5 again a week. I don't know. We just gotta see how it goes, play it by ear a little bit. Anyway. Holy B&R announcement, Batman. So, 3 cards banned. Oko, Thief of Crowns, the Elk Daddy Master himself, Mox Opal, and Mycosynthelatus. I mean, as far as Oko, I think we all kind of had the feeling it was coming. I don't know though, I'm seeing things go around on Twitter. Oh, that's where Tika Shack is. I like that place. Okay, sorry. Seeing discussion about it on Twitter, sometimes I kind of forget Oko's only been a card for less than 3 months. Because he was from the Throne of Eldraine set. Generally, I'm one of those people that is like, wait, slow down, let's see if the format can adjust to it. And I will say, after the tournament this weekend, I mean, in the top 4, there was only one deck featuring, one deck with the Teamer, or not Teamer, well, I mean, it was Teamer, but with the Urza Oko. Trying to remember if there was one of the Bant Snowblades in the top 4. I think so. I think it was Drake Sasser, right? I don't know. Why am I asking you? You can't answer me. Anyway, but the top 2 decks were Yawgmoth combo, which is, I want to build that deck so bad, and I will play it terribly. Oh my god, it's going to be bad. But I want to play it. It looks just fun as hell. Unfortunately, I need the Yawgmoths. I think I only have the one that I won through somebody's Twitter giveaway. So, anyway, yeah, no, I want to play that deck, but it looks kind of like Storm, where the basics of how the combo works is pretty easy to grasp. Like with Storm, you get a cost reducer on the field turn 2. Turn 3, if you have the things in your hand to reasonably probably go off, you go off. If not, you can actually wait till your opponent's end step to Gifts Ungiven, because, yeah, Gifts Ungiven is a fucking instant. Why? I mean, I'm down with it, but, well, no, it just seems really powerful for an instant. But, in any case, you cast your Gifts Ungiven, you go get 2 Writs, a Past in Flames, and a Grape Shot. And win. I mean, that's the basics of how it works. But what happens when you can't keep a cost reducer alive? What happens when your opponent exiles your graveyard? What happens when this, when that? What do you do in the non-happy path scenario? And or what do you do if your opening hand is, mediocre? Storm is not opposed to keeping 1 blue-red source, possibly even 1 mono blue source, I don't know, and a handful of cantrips to kind of spend a couple turns shaping your hand to get where you're trying to go. But, what happens when you don't have the tools to go off turn 2 or turn 3 or turn 4? when do you go for it? When do you kind of start going for it and realize you're not going to get there and stop to preserve a future storm count? When, there are all these other scenarios that don't fall in the happy path of turn 3 Writ into Manamorphose, into Gifts Ungiven, into Cantrip, Writ, Past in Flames, Writ, Manamorphose, Cantrip, Grape Shot you for a billion. What happens when you don't get on that? And so the Yawgmoth combo, the very basics of it is Yawgmoth, 2 Undying Creatures, doesn't really matter which ones, and Blood Artist. Now, I think Geralf's Messenger either hits for 2 or drains for 2 when it enters. So you can use Geralf's Messenger without the Blood Artist, I think. I don't know, though. Don't quote me on that. So, the basic place you want to be to go off is have 2 Undying Creatures, a Blood Artist, and a Yawgmoth. And you just keep constantly activating Yawgmoth and drain your opponent out for infinite, because... So you sack an Undying Creature, and it re-enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. You put a -1/-1 counter on your other Undying Creature, which, if it already had a +1/+1 counter, it negates it, and it essentially has no counters on it. Well, not essentially, it has no counters on it when state's cleaned up. If it didn't, chances are it dies, goes to the graveyard, comes back with its +1/+1 counter, and you just keep sacking your Undying Creatures that don't have counters on them. No, I'm in the right lane. I don't know what I'm doing. To put a -1/-1 counter on your Undying Creature that does have a +1/+1 counter on it, to knock the +1/+1 counter off, so when you sack that one, it comes back, and it's an infinite loop. What happens when they have a Scooz? What happens when their board state is much better than yours? What happens when, you don't have Yawgmoth right now? Now, the other things in the deck besides Yawgmoth, Blood Artist, lands, and Undying Creatures seems to mostly be Court of Calling and Eldritch Evolution. I'm sure there's a couple other things in there. I know there's more cards in the sideboard. But again, we're looking at just the basics of what fuels the combo. So, you can use Eldritch Evolution to sack one of your Undying Creatures to go get the piece of the combo you're missing. Hopefully you have... Well, no, you can go get Yawgmoth that way if you have the right mana costs and stuff. And then start your combo, or you can Court of Calling or whatever. So... everything in the deck seems to be designed like this. Deck is kind of all in from what I've seen on the combo. Its creatures are pretty much crap without the combo. Like, there's a reason nobody plays Undying decks. So, yeah, you basically just infinitely drain out your opponent. Oh, also, every time you sack a creature to put a -1/-1 counter on a creature, I think you lose a life and you draw a card. So that also helps you dig through the deck to get all your combo pieces online. Dig for the Blood Artist. At that point is usually where you're at. But again, what happens when your opponent has Graveyard Hate on the battlefield, like Grafdigger's Cage, or Leyline of the Void, or Anafenza, or Rest in Peace? What do you do when they kill your Yawgmoth or your Blood Artist? And, when do you go for it, and when do you hold back? The non-happy path scenarios are where I get borked on these combo decks, because, I only understand the basics of how the combo works. Anyway, it looks super fun. I really want to build it. The other deck in the finals was Mono Green fucking Devotion. What? Pioneer is rippling backwards into Modern, it looks like. There have been Mono Green decks throughout the time I've been paying attention to Modern, which is not from the beginning. But from time to time there have been various Mono Green decks. And they're usually like elves or stomp or, whatever. I think there was a mono green devotion deck before, but there hasn't been for the last couple of years. So I don't know if it's like the reprint of Leyline of Abundance that like reminded everybody that card exists. I don't know if it's the 3 Llanowar elves stapled together, which I think is 3 green to play, so it gives you 3 devotion pips. I don't know. I don't know where this deck came from, but it did well. And it was pretty fun to watch. I like anything that plays BTEs, honestly. So there was no Urza deck in the final, let alone winning. There was only one in the top 4. But again, I think the other deck that did not quite make the finals was a Banned Snowblade deck, which also features Oko. So was that an indication that the format was in fact starting to adjust? Or was it a fluke? I don't know. Was it less people were playing Oko because they had already cashed out their stock because they saw the writing on the wall? I don't know. But in the reality of it, Oko really hasn't been in the format very long. It just feels like it. And I think it's because it's a combination of factors. One, Oko is just destroyed Standard. Now, he's out of Standard now, but the time he was allowed to sit in there, like, it was worse than when Nexus of Fate was legal in Best of 1 on Arena. Second factor, he must have been legal at the start of Pioneer because they didn't start with anything banned but the fetch lands. So he was bleeding into Pioneer. And he's just kind of been fun policing all the formats. There really wasn't any escape from him until they started banning him in different formats. 2, the Urzoko deck, or the Urza deck, was already gaining traction in the wake of the Hogak ban in Modern, and was already kind of sitting there pissing people off because we hadn't figured out what to do about it yet. So it just got a fun new toy with Oko. And the third thing is, Modern has had an oppressive deck. Now it's shifted, but there has been an oppressive deck that's just pissing in everybody's Cheerios for like the last year and a half. Because it was KCI, and then it was Is It Phoenix, and then it was Hogak, and then it was the return of Hogak after the bridge ban. Then it was Urza just starting, and then Oko came in and locked it up. So I think this combination of factors may have led us to just believe that it was unbeatable. And I mean, I'll admit it 100%. I've been a person bitching for Oko to just be erased from the face of Magic. So I've been part of that crowd. But it's kind of astonishing to think how little time he was in the format and just how much havoc he brought upon people's enjoyment of the game. Anyway, so he's banned. Mycosynth Lattice I'm totally okay with because I think the Lattice Karn lock is kind of bullshit. One, it only takes 2 cards to do it. It'd be one thing if, like, Ugin was the Wish guy and Karn was the turn-off artifacts guy. So you had to have both and use Ugin to go Wish for the Mycosynth Lattice. But when it's basically a 2-card combo that if you can't immediately deal with the Karn, you get crushed out of the game. It definitely feels somewhat uneven, especially because much like the Oko problem, this combo revolves around a Planeswalker. And Planeswalkers are problematic to deal with. There just aren't a lot of ways to get them off the battlefield anymore. Like, it's just not. You either play really shitty, inefficient spells, Like, yeah, Hero's Downfall can hit a planeswalker or a creature. Cool. But in most instances, if it's not specifically a planeswalker you want to deal with, you want that Hero's Downfall to be a goddamn fatal push. It's just so much more efficient at dealing with creatures. And most of the most of the spells that can hit planeswalkers or creatures, one, require black. Like, black is the color that has the most direct instaglib planeswalker answers. Or two, and two, they cost more than spells that can just hit creatures. And so you end up in a situation where, you know, when your removal package is geared towards planeswalker or creature, you get run over by creature decks. And I mean, that's the biggest problem with planeswalkers, is there's just so few ways to deal with them, and everything that directly targets a planeswalker seems to be incredibly mana inefficient. And, you know, then when you combine that with these planeswalkers starting with more and more loyalty, red can't burn them out anymore. Attacking them down gets difficult. You know, especially most of the planeswalkers have an instant, like, their minus effect is to protect themselves, except for Noko, it was his plus, one of his plus effects. So it gets really hard to deal with planeswalkers and still have an effective game against everything else going on in Modern. And planeswalkers actually aren't that prevalent in Modern. You only see a handful of them played. You know, there's the two Lilies of the Veil and Last Hope. There's Karn Liberated, because mathematical coincidence. We're getting the Spirit Dragon, but you don't even see that many traditional Tron decks anymore. It's usually E-Tron anymore. So even those numbers have gone down. Oko, of course. Ren and 6 still see some play, but not a ton. What else we got? Jace the Mind Sculptor and Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, of course. Some play of Baby Teferi, but some Narset. That one's always interesting. I don't much care, because aside from popping Horizon Canopies, I don't draw extra cards. But, like, playing Storm, yeah, sure as shit I care about Narset. So, not a lot of planeswalkers see play, and really, if you look at it, it's been the more recent planeswalkers seeing play in Modern. And the reason for that is planeswalkers have been getting more and more powerful, while planeswalker removal has remained stagnant. So, I don't know. I'm not sad. Oh, Mycosynth Lattice. We'd already moved on from Oko. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not necessarily against the Mycosynth Lattice ban, because I think Karn's ability is pretty cool. You know, it's neat. And it does come at a pretty steep cost. That Wish ability, like, if you look at Wish sideboards, they kind of suck. Because they're all just, like, one-of Wish targets. You know, you can tell anything with more than a 1 in front of it is an actual might take a card out of my deck and put this in the main deck for a post-board game. But all the one-ofs, they're Wish targets. So you lose the adaptive ability inherent in sideboard, but you gain the ability to go get the exact answer you're looking for at this time. You know, you lose the ability, you're not siding in 3 ensnaring bridges to deal with my human stack, but you are gaining the ability that if you get one of your 4 Karns, you can just go get the 1 ensnaring bridge you need. But not having redundancy comes at a cost. I can get a Knight of Autumn in the battlefield. I blow up your ensnaring bridge. Well, that was the one you had. So it's a balancing act there. And with Mycosynflatus, it very much shored that up and made it much harder to work around. So, yeah, I'm not sad to see it go. Mox Opal, I feel like this is on par with Faithless Looting, that this is an overreach. Because a lot of the oppressive decks that have had Mox Opal in them, like, yeah, it got them online a turn faster, maybe, right? You know, but I don't think it's really going to hinder the Urza deck that much. Because they may have to go back to a more mono-blue oriented plan. Like, they may have to be less willy-nilly with the colors they're running, because Urza does only turn every fucking artifact you play into a Mox Sapphire, not a Mox Opal. But, you know, he can still generate just a shit ton of mana with a bunch of these shitty little artifacts. If they wanted to ban an artifact in that deck to kind of slow it down a little bit, I think Mishra's Bauble would have been the way to go. I can tell you're cool because your car's so loud. Thank you for letting me know you're so cool. But I saw somebody else bring it up. Might have been Tom Ross. Feels like this was a Tom Ross thing. Comparing it to Get Probe, and, you know, it's right. Now, Get Probe, you got to look at your opponent's hand. Didn't get to do anything to the hand. Just look at it, and then draw a card. Mishra's Bauble, you get to choose to look at either the top of your deck or the top of your opponent's. Can't move the card with Mishra's Bauble. And then on the next upkeep, you draw a card. So, especially when you have a creature like Emery, that can keep recurring your Bauble, and so you basically just get an extra card every turn until there's something more pressing to bring back with Emery. And getting to either look at the top of your deck if you're like, well, I can play this fetch land right now, or I can play, you know, this basic. So you get to look at the top of your deck to see, do you want that card, or would you rather pay the fetch land and crack it to go get one of your shock lands? Or, you know, you get to look at the top of your opponent's deck and see what's coming down the pipeline and what you need to play around. That seems like a more powerful effect in that deck than generating 1 mana. Now, granted, in multiples, Mox Opals, you can generate like 4 mana a turn if you tap it for a mana, play a new one, sack the old one to legendary roll, tap it for a mana, repeat until you're out of Moxen. But really, since this has been pointed out, it makes a lot of sense that Mishra's Bauble may actually be the worst one there, though I will say one of my local buddies may have had an aneurysm if they banned Bauble, because he was on Grixis Death Shadow for a minute. I think he's still on Grixis Death Shadow, and that's a card in that deck. And he was playing Dredge when the Faithless Looting ban came down. Like, not Hogak Dredge, mind you. Good old-fashioned fair magic Dredge. Not really fair, but close enough to fair. But I just don't feel like Mox Opal is really that unfair in the decks to feature, because it does come at a cost. You know, to turn it on, you have to have a lot of artifacts and everything. And heavy artifact-based decks have an inherent weakness in that there's a lot of shatter-type effects. So, I don't think it was that bad. And unfortunately, because Oko was such a strong part of that deck, we're probably going to see the Urza's deck, or the Urza deck, be on extreme life support. Now that these bans have happened, and it's going to look like the Mox Opal ban was relevant to that deck, and it may be just the fact that they lost Oko making it look that way when it actually hasn't affected it that much. I don't know, though. I did see somebody propose that if you don't feel that Mox Opal was that big a deal because of its effect. Why don't you try playing the same deck subbing Ornithopter? I don't know. But anyway, that's where we're at. I am sorry to everybody who lost their current deck. Emma Handy tweeted something out that really... There are a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, hey, I have all these cards, and I don't mind that they got banned. Now, I frequently said that, like, yeah, I shelled out $50 a piece for Caverns and Hierarchs to build humans, and I wouldn't be sad to see them reprinted anyway and driving the price down because those cards are too expensive. But I think, well, one, I do have a certain amount of privilege that may be clouding my judgment there, but two, I think that view is much less offensive than the, oh yeah, I mean, I lost money on this too, but these cards needed to go. There was a time where, you know, I was playing that shitty Nyazu Revolt deck. It was fun, but it was not good. And if that had been banned 2 weeks before the tournament I specifically built it to go to, I wouldn't have been able to go. Like, I wouldn't have been able to cobble something else reasonable together in time. So to everybody who got taken down by the bans, like, I'm sorry, I feel you, and that sucks. But, as far as the relevance of the bans, Oko was a problem, I think. Anyway, that's all I got. I'm gonna go inside. Yeah. So, as always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully I'll talk to y'all another time this week.